Have you ever had an idea or a concept that you believe in and have been too afraid to share it for fear of what people might think? Have you ever been too afraid to share a question in a lecture hall or in a public space? I know I have. The people that act on their ideas are the ones that create remarkable change. To me, as an aspiring entrepreneur, those big ideas are the ones like Google, Facebook, or maybe Tesla. But they're the big ideas. How about the smaller ideas that we all have sometimes? Maybe your idea is to learn guitar and bring joy to the people around you. Or maybe your idea is to learn a new language so you can reach out to a new person. Today, I want to talk about the first step in taking action on your ideas. For me, in my experience, that's been having a conversation. Now, the first time I realized this was actually about 7 years old. My mum and I had gone for a walk in the woods, a bike ride rather, in the woods, and me being my young self, I decided that I'd like to go on the jump track instead of the normal family track. Mum had carried on, and I had, of course, got lost down the jump track. So about halfway down, I stopped, being lost, and I said, right, I'm lost here. I had two options on my plate. The first one is I could sit still and wait for something to happen to me, and I did for another few minutes. The second and the latter option was to reach out to someone for help so that they could connect me with my mum again. Now, I sat for another 10 minutes or so and decided on the latter eventually, in great despair and in tears rolling down my young face. And it was the first time I realized the power of conversation. So I walked out to the nearest road, and blue being my favorite color, I decided it was a sensible strategy to wait for the next blue car to come by. So a yellow car came by, and that simply wouldn't do. And then a red car went past, and of course, I wasn't going to flag that one down. Over the horizon came a blue car. Now, of course, the nerves started firing up inside of me, but I knew I had to do it because I was lost. So as it came closer, I flagged it down, and I still remember to this day the friendly face of the elderly couple that helped me that day. And they rekindled with me and my mum. And it was the first time I realized that reaching out and having a conversation is the first step in taking action. Now, this has continued through my life. In primary school, I had quite a serious consortium group of products that included dog walking, car washing, and sweet selling. I was told off for all three, and all three failed as well, so a pile of sweets left at home for my family. That carried on into secondary school, where my friend and I had concocted a plan to order $250 worth of mouthguards from China and sell them online. Much to my parents' dismay, we were ordering things from China, sending bank transfers over. It wasn't the best. We had about 100 when we started, and when I totted it up earlier, we still had about 100 left, so that one didn't go too well either. I stand where I am today. We have a social enterprise that connects entrepreneurs in the Northwest. We've just doubled in size. I have a university proofreading startup that's been funded multiple times, and I've also involved in an extremely exciting startup in the education technology sector. So today, I want to talk about the 3 tools that I've used to have that first conversation about my idea, and I hope that they inspire you to use them in your own conversations. So the first is ignore your emotion. The second is embrace the skeptic. And the third is turn motivation into momentum. So ignore your emotion. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll tell a story. When I was about 16, I'd been training Taekwondo, which is a martial art, for about 8 years. I'd had the extreme fortune to be offered a place at the European Championships to represent the national Taekwondo squad. Now, this had been my vision since I started Taekwondo, and I gleefully accepted in the first instance. I then ensued on a 3-month training program that included a strict diet and running a couple of miles every single day. Now, every single day, I questioned my ability to compete in this competition because I was moving towards something that frankly terrified me. The competition was huge. It was one of the biggest in the world, and it petrified me to think of it. The low point came when I reached out to my dad, and I said, Dad, I simply can't fight in this. I want to organize that. Come on, can you get my coach and tell him I can't fight anymore? My father consoled me on that day, and I ended up fighting in that competition. And I lost. But I did win an extremely valuable lesson that I carry with me to this day, and that's that you have to ignore the part of your emotion that tells you to stop. Standing up for your idea can be really scary to do. Promise. I've done it a few times. But ultimately, you have to take the emotion and realize that that's okay. Chase the fear. If your idea is big enough, then it will be scary. Winston Churchill said something fantastic that I really love. He said, "Success is not final. Failure isn't fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." And with, of course, all respect to Mr. Churchill, I'd say success isn't final, failure isn't fatal. It is the courage to start that counts. Ignore the part of your emotion that tells you to stop. So once you've plucked up the courage to have that first conversation about your big idea, the next tool that I've used, and I invite you to, is to embrace the skeptic. Now, we all realize the range of people that we can speak to about our ideas. There's the pessimists, who will always knock you down about your idea, maybe. And then there's the optimists on the other side, who are very energetic and will always kind of bring you up about the idea. And of course, there's the people in the middle. And they represent parts of our friendship groups. I say embrace all three, but particularly embrace the skeptic. Embrace the person who's maybe a little bit pessimistic, because those are the ones who will point out the problems and the flaws with your ideas. Now, the key for us as doers is changing those problems and flaws into challenges and opportunities. Don't let skeptics bring you down. Instead, embrace the skeptic, because they will be the ones who point out the critical issues with your idea. So maybe you've plucked up the courage to have your first conversation, and then you've embraced the skeptic during the conversation. After that conversation, I'd hope you can turn motivation into momentum for your idea. The feeling of standing up for your idea is fantastic, and it's a great feeling inside. So have one conversation, and then have 100 more. Because if you have those 100 conversations, that is what will bring action. There is always opportunities to have conversations. As a previous student, of course, there's the cleaner in the kitchen while you're eating your bacon in the morning. Why don't you speak to them? Or maybe it's your parents who call you every couple of weeks to cry and tell you to come home. Have a conversation, and then have 100 more. Take genuine action within hours. When I was in high school, back to our mouth guard genius plan, we were emailing, much to my parents' dismay again, companies in China within hours. So after you've had that conversation, turn the motivation into momentum. Take action. We live in a society now where we can have conversations easier than ever. I bet 95% of us in this room have a device in our pockets that connect us not just to the world, but to our friends. If you're feeling motivated by this talk, and I really hope you are, what action could you take in the next 5 minutes on the idea that sits in the back of your head? You might feel as lost as I did in the woods back at age 7. But I'd say reach out to that blue car. In fact, reach out to any car, because it's the people that take action on ideas that create remarkable change. Thank you.